Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, attraction coach and founder of The Goddess Next Door. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. Today's topic is one I'm sure we can all relate to. With everything we've got going on in our lives, keeping up with loved ones, our friends, work, not to mention email and social media, my God. I mean, how many times do you hear yourself saying, "Oh, I've been so busy," whenever a friend asks how you're doing or what you've been up to? So many people complain about being chronically busy, but they don't know what to do about it. Jackie Woodside has a few things to say about this. She literally wrote the book on how to calm the chaos in our lives and spoke about it during her TED Talk. But before I talk with Jackie today, I'm thrilled to invite you to join Spark Society, your virtual home to nurture your spirit and soul. Spark Society is a monthly lifestyle subscription bringing you a gorgeous source of inspiration, thought-provoking information, and entertaining content mixed with a bit of magic to help you create and live a life you love. Each month, you'll get a themed collection of spiritual brilliance and amazing resources to explore different areas of your life and help you thrive. As a society sister, you'll get everything you need delivered to your inbox, full of exclusive content coming to you from myself and your favorite Awakened Goddess Show guests. Each month, we will explore a metaphysical or lifestyle topic in a fresh, fun way, and you'll have the opportunity to connect with other fun, aspiring, spiritual-minded women like you. So come on over to theawakenedgoddess.com, click on the Join Spark Society button, and join us for just $1 for your first 2 weeks of subscription. See you there. Well, thank you, Jackie, for joining me today on the Awakened Goddess Show. You are truly a goddess, I hear, from people that are close to you, so excited to have you here.
Don't listen to a thing they say.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just see how it goes.
All right.
So you have your book that just came out. It's actually your second book, and it is called Calming the Chaos, a soulful guide to managing your energy rather than your time. Oh my gosh, how perfect timing-wise is this? Yeah. I mean, oh my God, can't we all calm the chaos?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I hear that from like everyone who I say my book title to. That's exactly what every single person says, like, "Oh my God, I need that book." So it is very contemporary in terms of our social need. So many people are living in chaos and overwhelm. That's kind of what I hear from everyone. And especially, people get very interested of the subtitle, "The Soulful Guide to Managing Your Energy Rather Than Your Time," really gets people's attention.
Yeah, because I mean, we all have experienced different time management systems. I mean,
right.
That's what we think that, that's going to fix the problem, but...
Right. And we all failed.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how many organizers or planners or calendars that we have, whether we paste them all on the walls, have them on our desk, have them on our phones.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Sticky notes. Yeah. People always ask me, like, "Jackie, so what software do you recommend? What's the best software system?" And I always just laugh and say, like, it really doesn't matter because you can have the best system, the best organizer, the best software, the best whatever, but really the variable is you. And to what degree are you going to develop yourself as the kind of person that manages yourself in time rather than trying to manage your time? Managing yourself, your decisions, your commitments, your priorities, your ability to say no, and your ability to know what your limits are. And anyway, there's lots of things in the book, as you can tell, but yes, it is really a book about self-management rather than time management.
Yeah. So what I understand is that we have kind of a similar turning point experience in our life where we realized it was time to stop just doing the busyness of life and shift our focus and manage our energy. So I would love to hear what that turning point was for you.
Yeah, Angela, thanks for asking. It really was a huge turning point. I was in my, probably late 20s, early 30s, and I'd had an injury. I'm a racquetball player, so I had a repetitive motion injury where I had tendonitis in my elbow and bursitis in my shoulder and tendonitis in my wrist. And I was basically a mess on my whole right side. And I tried lots and lots of healing approaches with acupuncture and physical therapy, and I had a couple cortisone shots, I'd done everything, and it just was not getting better. So a friend of mine recommended an acupuncturist, and I was game, I was like, all right, I'll do whatever. And so I went to see this acupuncturist, and he did his assessment on me. And afterwards he said, I can help you with this injury, but I need to tell you the injury is only a symptom of a deeper issue that's a bigger problem for you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, so what's that? And he went on to say that in his Chinese medicine, he used the phrase Chung Mo, which means qi, what we might recognize, or life force energy. He said, your Chung Mo is incredibly low for someone your age. And he went on to say, you're a very driven person, aren't you? Very type A, very success minded. And I was like, yeah. And like, is that a problem? And he said, it's not necessarily a problem, except that the way that you're doing it, and so what I came to understand after that appointment, which was really life-altering, is I was all about, and I still am. I mean, if you were to look at me today, it's not like I'm sitting around, wondering what to do with my life. I still am very oriented towards service and contribution to the greater good and making a difference and being success-minded. But it's all today from a much deeper place. Mm-hmm. Where I literally say I have never worked a day in my life since making this change, that I'm really fulfilling my purpose. And when you're fulfilling your purpose, acting in alignment with who you are and who you came here to be, you are really managing your energy rather than your time. And of course, there's still a lot of skills that you need to employ and whatnot, and how you manage your energy. But what that acupuncturist was saying to me was that the way that I was living in this very driven, chaotic, always pushing, adrenaline addicted fashion was burning me out. Mm-hmm. And that I needed to really look deeply at how I was living and who I was being, and alter fundamentally at a very deep level the way that I was approaching my life. So that's what started my interest in this notion that we can actually move through life not having to manage our time and our to-dos and our tasks, but managing, in fact, our life force energy.
Yeah, I love that, because I think so many of us go through that experience of maybe adrenal fatigue or adrenal failure, or pushing ourselves, living from that place of just living off of adrenaline and thinking that that's how it's done, or thinking that that's what we need to do. And so I just love how you're bringing this awareness to how we can shift our focus and live more in alignment and more with more ease.
Yeah. We're absolutely living in a culture that has bought that paradigm of, having it all has been up-leveled by doing it all. Mm-hmm. Where not only is everyone who's working busy, and everyone who's working and has kids busy, and kids are now too busy. And even, my mother who's retired, every week when I talk to her, she says, "Oh, I'm so busy." Like, Mom, you're retired. You don't. I was just talking to one of my girlfriends last night who retired last May, and she said, "Well, I'm taking this summer off." And I was like, "Wait a minute, you're retired."
Yeah, how can you take the summer off?
How can you take the summer off? And she just laughed at herself, and so you can see how deeply ingrained that thinking is, that even my mom who's retired and, my friend who's retired, they still have this notion of like, I'm so busy. It really is a cultural paradigm that we're living inside of that I think isn't working for us at the depth that we want to experience life.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that it has something to do with, and us having a need to like prove that we're enough or prove that we're worthy, the
Yeah, I think
busyness.
it comes from many things, Angela. I think that whole notion of not being good enough is kind of fundamentally basic to our human condition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't know that that's specific to this era or this cultural paradigm, but here's the way that I see it. Because I really think that what you just said, I'm not something enough. I'm not good enough, pretty enough, sexy enough, accomplished enough, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not enough is part of the human condition, and people don't recognize that it's part of the human condition. So for many years, you can see through different eras, people have tried different things to feel like they're enough.
Right.
Whether it was earning more or, sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the 60s and 70s, whatever that might have been for different people. But what's happening now is that with the advent of the information age and the technological era, we have access to so much information and so much data all the time, so much communication all the time, that we are filling that I'm not enoughness
mm-hmm.
with constant stimulation.
Yeah.
Our phones are no longer phones. They're these mobile devices that we can do anything and everything with at any given point. So I say in the book, our neurology has not kept pace with our technology.
Mm-hmm.
So our need to fill that not enoughness can literally every second be satiated and be addressed. So we're constantly trying to do more, experience more, know more, follow more, and for what?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it. It's a combination of that fundamental humanness of not enoughness and a lack of awareness of being driven by that, coupled with the technological and information era that we're now in the face of.
Yeah, because with Facebook and Twitter and all of these ways to connect, and being an entrepreneur, it's like you think that you have to do it all. You have to be everywhere. And it just feeds that cycle, that negative cycle of keeping ourselves, as you say, busy really on things that really are not effective.
Mm-hmm. That's what I call in the book being busy but not productive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I have a whole chapter devoted to that actually, on the distinction between being busy, which is a mindset and a way of being, as is being productive, which means peacefully, clearly taking ground on what's important to you, actually moving projects from fruition beginning to completion, rather than doing a million things throughout the day and getting to the end of the day and feeling like, what did I do today? I know I was busy all day, but what did I get done?
Yeah. Oh
I was talking to a girlfriend of mine this morning, and she was just, and actually I hadn't talked to her in about 2 or 3 years, and she's been following me on Facebook. She's like, I just have to know, like, how are you doing this? How are you being so successful? How are you getting on all these radio shows and TV shows? And I can't believe, you're so successful. How are you doing it? And I just laughed and I said, Susan, I'm a product of my product.
Mm-hmm.
I really live these principles that have to do with aligning with your purpose, living in high consciousness, and being productive rather than busy. And I don't try to do it all. I try to do what's important to me, where I feel called, and that's also in alignment with my vision for my life and how I want to be used in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would love for you to talk more about alignment, because this is something that for me has really been on my mind the past few weeks, because I understand the concept. I understand it consciously, but I have yet to be able to really embody it. So I would love for you to talk about how you can embody alignment. And
sure.
Just alignment.
So it's
with
a big
purpose.
world out there. If again, one of the tweetables, if you will, from my book is, if you are a yes to everything, you will be a no to your peace of mind. So if you say yes to everything, you'll be saying no to your peace of mind. And I'm sure you're completely shaking your head like, oh, I so get that, right? And a lot of your listeners will be like, yeah, totally. So you can't be a yes to everything in the era that we're living in. So then how do you know to have your yes be yes and your no be no, to what you say yes to and what you say no to?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it comes down to kind of two fundamental factors. One is what I call your intentionally designed life context. So knowing who you are, what you're here for, what your core values are, what your vision is. And I even go so far as in one of my programs, having people write a personal mission, and then aligning those core values, which is what you care about, with your mission, which is how you want to express that, with your vision, which is what you want to do, with your goals, which is how you're going to accomplish what you want to do. So it's this kind of step-by-step process that I teach in my life design program. So it's very powerful. So that really helps you have a good sense of deep alignment. But then there's this other factor that I bring into that, kind of the background of all of that is this: what do you most deeply desire? Because what you are desiring at a deep level, and I don't mean, I desire a bowl of ice cream because I had a hard day. I don't mean that level of desire. Yeah. But I'm really talking about a soul level, those things that scare you and that you think like, oh gosh, that's nice for somebody else, but I couldn't do that. Those deep level desires, I say, are your direct communication from God and with God. How do you know what you want to be used by in your life? Well, the answer to that question is, how do you really want to show up in the world? So when you begin paying attention to what you desire and then designing your life around it, it's not like you do that once and then it's all over, because as you achieve and accomplish your desires, new desires emerge. Sure. So it becomes a lifelong process of creating yourself ongoingly in alignment with who you are and what you desire. And it's a rich and delicious process, Angela, that, I've just committed my life to living this way and to teaching other people the power and magic of it.
Yeah, it's definitely magic when you get into that alignment and you are in the flow. Is there an example that you can give where someone would be in alignment with something like, do you know what I'm asking? Yeah. What would be an example of that?
Yeah, I can give several actually, but I'll try to pick just one. So one of the things I've wanted to do my whole life was, I grew up in the Thousand Islands on the St. Lawrence River, which is the border between northern New York and southern Ontario. It's a beautiful, beautiful region of the country. I'm reluctant to even talk about it publicly because it's very remote. Nobody knows about it, and we like it that way up there. Right. So anyway, but it's, because it's so remote, there's not a lot of professional opportunities up there. So I don't live there any longer. But since I left as a child, I wanted to own a summer home back on the Thousand Islands in the St. Lawrence River. So about 6 years ago, my cousin, who owned my great aunt and uncle's property, knew that I wanted to buy their home. And he knew that when he was done with it, someday I would buy it. So I thought someday would come much, much later, but 5 or 6 years ago, he called me and said, Jackie, it's time. I'm just not taking care of the cottage. I'm not using it that much. And if you want it, I'm going to sell it this year. And I thought, wow, this is a problem because I don't exactly have the money to buy a second home. But I knew it was on my vision board. It had been for many years. I knew that it was in alignment with my values. And I also knew that if it was meant to be, it would occur with effortless ease. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. So that weekend, after my cousin called me, I had 2 friends from college come in town that I had not seen in probably 12 years. And they were going to be spending the weekend with me. They were just passing through and needed a place to stay. And what are the chances that on the weekend that I had this quote unquote problem, 2 of my old friends showed up who happen to own 2 homes in Saratoga Springs, New York and Lake Placid, New York. They live in one of them and they rent the other one out on HomeAway.com. And so they looked at my home in Massachusetts, where I currently live, which is, by the way, a waterfront home also. I'm a little bit of a waterfront snob.
Yeah.
I have a little lakefront home in central Massachusetts. And they looked and they said, well, Jackie, this is easy. This isn't a problem at all. Move to upstate New York, spend your summers on the river like you've always wanted to do, and rent out your house here in Massachusetts and take that money to pay for your summer home. I was like, what? Central Massachusetts? Like it's tiny little town, Marlborough, Massachusetts? It's not exactly a destination vacation.
Yeah.
They said it's waterfront. It's an hour from Boston, an hour from Cape Cod, an hour from the White Mountains. This is a prime location. So long story short, they set up my account that weekend. They got me all online, and I've been renting out my winter home, if you will, my 10-month out of the year home for the last 6 years. And every year it entirely pays for my ability to own my second home.
Oh, I love
So it was a lifelong dream come true. And I mean, what are the chances of that? What are the chances that the exact weekend I needed that information, those people who had that information, who I had not talked to in 10 years and not seen in 12 years, were at my house? So, and what's been beautiful about that for me is at the time my son was 2 years old. So it must be 7 years now. At the time my son was 2 years old, we bought the house that year. And so I've been able to not only spend my summers in, a place that I grew up, but I'm also raising my son on the river and boats and chasing ships and doing all the things that I did as a child. That is just so deeply meaningful for me and so gratifying and fulfilling for my whole family to have that opportunity. So that's it. That's living in alignment. I knew what I wanted. I had the faith. I was willing to take the risk. I said to my cousin on the first phone call, like, yes, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but yes, I will do this. Yeah. And then the answer emerged.
Interesting. So it was saying yes to the unknown.
It was saying yes to the unknown. I was thinking to myself, my spouse is going to kill me. I got to go home tonight and tell my spouse what we're doing because, but I knew I was going to do it. I knew there would be no way that I was going to let that property go out of the family. So it was that knowing, that faith, that alignment, that belief. And, I lamented for a couple of days about what are we going to do. And my cousin was really great about it too. He's like, well, we'll work something out. I didn't know what, because I was all about the monthly mortgage payments. Like, right. How am I going to get a second mortgage? So the first thing was finding out that I could rent out my house and come up with extra money. The second thing was when I actually met with my cousin a couple months later in person to go over the details, he said, oh, don't worry about it. Just pay me once a year, a one-time payment once a year, no interest. You don't need to get a bank loan. We'll just do this as a handshake deal. So I've never carried a mortgage on it. And anyway, it's such a blessing. And really, the thing I want to say is that's one of multiple stories I could tell you that are just like that. How my books got published. My girlfriend that called me today was like, how do you do this? And I was just like, it's a God thing. The TV show that I was just on, she's like, how did you get on that? I was like, well, I met this gal like a year ago and she really liked my work. And the TED Talk I did a few years ago, same thing. Just someone saw me once and remembered me. And, what are the chances of that? It is entirely a God thing. And I say it's because I lived my life with clarity and intention and alignment with who I came here to be in a high level of consciousness.
And that's such a beautiful experience and way to live.
It's living in the realm of miracles.
Yeah, I think that that's a beautiful example or beautiful story about how, like you said, living in alignment and having that clarity of knowing what you want and then trusting that things will line up for you. And that experience of having things show up just randomly, like you said, what are the chances? And, oftentimes it's like we get in our own way. We try to, it's like we know what we want and then we try to push our way to get it or we try to make it happen. So yeah, there's a huge difference between that and what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I can't say I don't do anything. So there is an action component to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's the saying yes. There's the, the writing of the book. There's the, putting yourself out there. But it's not efforting. It's
Mm-hmm.
allowing
Mm-hmm.
and being in that place of high consciousness, being committed to what you want, but really surrendering your attachment to any particular outcome.
Yeah. And how do you do that when you really want something?
Yeah. How do you do that when you really want something?
Yeah.
I mean, I have so much I could say about that.
Well, go for it.
I guess I'll say one thing about it. When it boils down to it, what I think is the answer is want God more than anything else.
Mm.
And that's a profound statement. But if you live your life that way, like, do I want this next book, Calming the Chaos? Do I want it to be wildly successful? Yes. Do I want that more than I want to know myself as God, expressing God, one with God? No.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I believe is that my path to having my book be wildly successful is to bring my greatest, highest God self on earth to the book launch and to all of my interviews and to, everything that I'm doing around the book and, of course, in every other area of my life. So the things that you really, really want and get attached to, remind yourself, I want God more than anything. Mm-hmm. And that really, it helps me maintain a very strong sense of equanimity, which is a very high consciousness principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious, what's something that you do in your daily spiritual practice that you've found has had the greatest impact on your life?
Want God more than anything.
Uh-huh.
I get asked this question all the time, and my answer is a little bit unique. So I have an audio CD by this name. One of the mantras that I live by is make my life a living prayer. So probably my most profound spiritual practice is my life lived as my God self, doing everything that I do. Again, I don't succeed at this, by the way. But my goal, my spiritual practice, is to do everything that I do every moment, all the time, everywhere, towards everyone, including myself, in Christ consciousness, in God consciousness, with unconditional love and acceptance and surrender and peacefulness and equanimity. Yeah. And to live my life that way. So, what does that look like? So in the morning I get up and I don't ever want to make my bed. I'm not exactly a biological morning person, but I make my bed. And when I do that, I do it as an act of surrender to God, surrendering my ego and my will to that day by making my bed. So that's a spiritual practice. Most people would not think making your bed is a spiritual practice. For me, it is. Mm-hmm. And then I go and get dressed and I go upstairs and I wake up my son. And I wake up my son with just complete reverence and love and kisses. He's only 10, so he's still kind of little. And then I do this silly little thing where I literally, instead of kind of making him get up, I pick him up and carry him to the bathroom. Oh. And those steps from his bedroom to the bathroom are like a prayer, where I'm really doing that with a sense of love and commitment and intention. And I don't know what I'm going to do because he's about 75 pounds now. And I'm either going to get really big biceps or I'm going to have to find some other way to love him up in the morning. Yeah. But anyway, you get my point. Everything that I do, getting in my car, I get in my car with a gratitude experience. Like, I'm just so grateful that I don't have to get on a horse and buggy, or I'm so grateful that someday we'll be able to teleport ourselves. And yeah. So it's bringing that consciousness to my day, and that is my most profound spiritual practice. I also meditate and journal and write my prayers, but there is nothing as profound to me as making my life a living prayer. Yeah, and I love that, expressing in all that you do that unconditional love for yourself and others, and yeah, I think that tapping into that energy and as you say, Christ consciousness, it's allowing for
that energy to move through you and use you as a vessel and a channel to whatever it is your life's purpose and however you're to be showing up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful. And when I use that expression, I don't mean that in the Christian tradition necessarily, but the Christed one, the enlightened one. So it could be represented in the person of Jesus. It could be represented in the person of Buddha, and it could be represented in the person of you and me and each of us as we move through our lives with the devotion and the commitment to being our highest consciousness self every moment, everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I know it's a huge topic.
Okay.
I'm looking for a little snippet, but surrender. Surrender, when we think of surrender, a lot of times we think of giving up. But you talked about surrendering and making your bed. So can you just for a moment speak about surrender and what that really means?
Sure. Yes, so surrender and acceptance are really the right and left arm of a high consciousness life. Surrendering my opinions of how things should be, surrendering my view of things to the way that things are. So I have a coaching mantra that I use with my coaching clients, and it's let people be who they are because they're going to be anyway.
I love it.
And that's not a statement of resignation or cynicism. It really is just a statement of acceptance. Like, people are the way they are. So I can get all angsty about it and tense and ticked off, or I can really just see that people are going to be the way that they are, and love them anyway, because that's what I'm here to do. So surrender is not a statement of weakness. It's a statement of strength if you live your life in the notion of, I want God more than anything. And, in calming the chaos, one of the things that you have to surrender to is that our lives, our spirit is unlimited, but our physical expression of life is limited. We've got 24/7, God willing. And if you try to do everything in that, in those 24 hours, you won't be having an experience of surrender. You'll be having an experience of chaotic control. You'll be a chaotic control freak, and you'll be driven and you'll be exhausted. So one of the things in this day and age that we have to surrender to is I can't do everything. I can do anything, but I can't do everything, and making peace with that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think I couldn't have said it any better. You just made that all very clear. So awesome.
Good. I'm glad.
So to leave our listeners, to close the show today, what practical tip or tool would you suggest that they start using to help them calm the chaos?
Gosh, there's so many in the book. There are literally, there's got to be, probably 30, 40 different tips and tools and a handful of inventories. There's so much in the book. But I guess I'll say this, Angela, and that is, you have to really pay attention to the two domains of living. And one is the earth plane. So that is the question on the earth plane, the physicality, the doingness of life is you've got to have a really strong skill set to manage yourself in time and manage all that's coming at you. So, and in the book, again, there's a ton of, I'll give you just one. So one of the tips in the book is this principle I use of touch it only once. Some people might have heard that before, but a lot of people, their houses, their physical environments, their offices become just a tornado because they pick something up and they start working on it, and then they set it aside, and they start something else and they set it aside, and then they spend the whole weekend picking up after themselves, or lose a whole work day of productivity because their office is such a mess. So there's skills like that I teach in the skill set. And because we are a human being, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but we are having a human experience. So you need to develop some great skills around your effectiveness, your productivity, and your beingness. How you're actually moving through your physical experience. So the one the earth plane I teach is the skill set and all different kinds of skills for managing yourself and time. Then the other plane is the ethereal or the spiritual or the consciousness plane, and that is your mindset. Mm-hmm. So there's your skill set and how you're actually doing things, and the other piece is your mindset for how you're actually thinking about and holding in consciousness your relationship with everything you have to do and just your relationship with time. So one of the things I ask people in Calming the Chaos is, what do you most often say about time? And 99% of the time, what people say to me is, I don't have enough of it. I don't have enough time. Mm-hmm. So when you're living in that, what is that but a scarcity consciousness, a belief in lack? So when that's the starting point for most people, that is going to produce a life of chaos. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. Mm-hmm. It produces a life of pressure and overwhelm. So the first thing that you've got to deal with is the fact that you have all the time that you need for what you decide to do. Mm. But most often we don't make our decisions. We're unconscious, and we have all of these demands being placed on us by, our families and our workplaces and our culture in general. But the truth is, we forget that we have the power to choose what it is, how we're going to interact with time and with activities and with our doingness. And we do that because we've lost sight of our beingness and the fundamental truth that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's a long-winded answer. That's okay. but what people have to manage is their skill set and their mindset, develop greater skills around effectiveness and productivity, and get out of scarcity lack consciousness that you don't have enough time.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it. Awesome. So Jackie, how can people find out more about you and get your book?
Sure. So Amazon.com, Calming the Chaos, is where you can get the book, or you can get it on my website, JackieWoodside.com. And I also hope you'll become friends with me and follow me on Facebook. So Facebook.com/JackieWoodside. And of course, I'm on Twitter at Jackie Woodside as well. So there's lots of places to connect with me and hear more about what I'm doing and what I'm up to. And I certainly would love to hear from your listeners.
Awesome. Yeah, and Jackie has a great TED Talk too. So I'll make sure to put links to everything you need on the show page. So
awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jackie, for joining me today. This was such a wonderful discussion that I know that people are really going to take a lot from. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me as your guest, Angela.
Yeah, my pleasure. And now I'd love to hear from you guys. The best discussions happen after the show over at theawakenedgoddess.com. So get yourself over there and leave a comment right now. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, subscribe to the show. And of course, it would be amazing if you shared this with all of your friends. And if you want even more incredible resources, come on over to theawakenedgoddess.com and sign up for email updates. And so until next time, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess. I hope you enjoyed today's show and took away something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at thegoddessnextdoor.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.